This is an ABC News special report.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning in the West. I'm Peter Jennings. We interrupt briefly because in Denver today, the judge in the Timothy McVeigh case, Richard Maich, is about to issue a ruling on McVeigh's appeal for a stay of execution. In the last few hours, the judge has heard from McVeigh's lawyer and from the government, which wants a stay denied. The judge has been very tough on both sides. He told the government that he certainly takes into account the many missing documents which the FBI didn't turn over to McVeigh's lawyers. He also told the defense that when he heard about their appeal that others were being put forward as witnesses, he practically lost it. At any rate, we have now had the word that the judge has denied Timothy McVeigh's appeal for a stay of execution. Let's go to the courthouse in Denver at the moment. Okay, there's nobody at the courthouse at the moment. We'll go to our legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin. Denied? Are you surprised?
Well, you know, the one thing we didn't know going into this is what was in these documents. Now, a neutral party, Judge Maich, has looked at these documents, and he said essentially they are no big deal. The government should have turned them over, but it doesn't really affect either the guilty verdict or the judgment of death. And now it really does look like he's got 4 days to live unless another court comes in.
There was a lot of talk, however, before this that Judge Maich was going to be infuriated when he heard that the FBI had held back documents from his defense. And at one point he said he lost his judicial restraint. Did people get perhaps a little overexcited about the judge's temperament?
They could have been. And, you know, the documents themselves obviously mattered a lot. If they really didn't suggest that anyone was involved, as it appears given the denial of the stay they do, then, you know, it was a mistake, but it doesn't really go to whether this verdict or the sentence was justified.
Okay, let's go to the federal courthouse in Denver, where ABC's Dean Reynolds is now standing by. And Dean, give us a rundown of what happened.
Well, the judge was really blistering in exploding the defense argument that somehow this was a fraud upon the court. He made some serious comments about the difference between the integrity of the FBI and the integrity of this court. He said, I am not going to try the FBI. And then he went on to say that he was circumspect after the trial of Timothy McVeigh about saying anything what he thought of McVeigh and what he thought McVeigh might have done because it might have impacted Nichols. Now he is not so circumscribed, and he said that there is no doubt to anyone who listened to the evidence that McVeigh did this, that he is guilty of first-degree murder, and that the jurors reached their decision to sentence him to death based on all of the evidence that they heard. The evidence that the FBI may have withheld just is not tenable, he said, as an argument that it might somehow have changed the jurors' minds in the sentencing phase.
Dean, does this then mean, as far as we're all concerned, that McVeigh is going to be executed on June the 11th as scheduled?
No, it does not, Peter, because we have been led to believe that the defense plans to appeal the denial of this petition to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals right here in this building. And that appeal could come later today.
Okay, Dean, thanks very much. And Jeffrey, of course, in fact, they could appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. And last-minute appeals in death penalty cases are not unusual. They're sometimes granted, but I think McVeigh has a very uphill climb now because this is so much based on the facts of the case, what really these documents show. And I think the appeals court judges are going to show enormous deference to Judge Maich, who, of course, knows the facts of this case far better than any other judge.
The defense attorneys had made a big deal that there was something in these papers that hadn't been seen before. The judge clearly not impressed.
The judge was not impressed. We, of course, have had access to these documents, so we can't make our independent judgment. But clearly, Richard Maich was not impressed, and that's who matters today.
Okay, many thanks. Just going to check in very briefly with ABC's Pierre Thomas, who covers the Justice Department. This is clearly a victory for the department.
Absolutely, Peter, and I can tell you that there's a collective sigh of relief going on at the Justice Department. Many people here were worried that Judge Maich might, in fact, stay the execution to give the defense attorneys more time. But they held on to the seminal fact that there was nothing in these documents that would change the outcome of that verdict earlier.
Many thanks, Pierre Thomas, at the Justice Department. So that's the current state. Judge Maich has denied the defense attorney's appeal for McVeigh to stay his execution. Dean Reynolds in Denver says they will now appeal it to the 10th Federal Appeals Court, which is also in Denver, very much in the same building. There's no guarantee, as I think Jeffrey Toobin was making the point earlier, that they will take any time to hear that at all, so this may be resolved even by the end of the day. Many thanks. Jeffrey Toobin and Pierre Thomas and Dean Reynolds will keep you up to date on this. You can follow it closely all the time, of course, at abcnews.com. I'm Peter Jennings.
For continuing coverage of this story, stay with ABC News and abcnews.com on the web. This has been a special report from ABC News.